Hello everyone and welcome back to Roll Inish. My name is Matt and in this video we're going to talk to you about all the features you get when you become a fighter. We're also going to dive into the first of 3 martial archetypes found in your player's handbook, the Champion Martial Archetype. Now, if you're a first-time player and you want to learn how to play D&D, I would highly recommend you consider playing a fighter. The reason I say that is because combat is a very important part of this game. And there is no better class, in my opinion, that is made for combat more than the fighter. It will help you learn what is on your sheet, what abilities your character has, and you get something new and learn something new at every single level in the fighter, making it a good learning experience for you that isn't overwhelming, so you can really learn the basics and get down the mechanics before you start adding a little more complex elements to the game, such as magic. So I would highly recommend playing a fighter if it's your first time playing, because it is a lot of fun. So if you're thinking about having a backstory that involves somebody that, had a famous relative who was a well-known fighter, and you're that person's son or daughter and trying to live up to the family name, this is a great class to use and build that backstory around. Maybe you're playing a former, village guard or town or city watch guard. Maybe you're playing a gladiator that won their freedom in the fighting pits and now wants to turn to a life of adventuring because the possibilities of dungeon diving and, treasure hunting and fighting monsters is just too good to pass up. I get it. The fighter class is a ton of fun to play, and those are great ideas for character backstories that have a lot of room for personal growth and development, because you could spin it so many different ways with the amount of things that the fighter can do. So let's take a look at the fighter class. Now, this is the book is just going to give you a brief synopsis, but I basically just told you everything that the book is going to say, right? They're specialists. They know how to fight, so think about that in your backstory because they're better than most in combat. Where did they learn those things? They are built and trained for danger. Your player's handbook, when you look at the quick build section, is going to say for you to first make strength or dexterity your highest ability score. And it says that because the weapons that a fighter will use in combat are either strength or dexterity based. If you want to wield a sword, a short sword or a long sword or something that can be held in one hand while holding a shield in the other, or perhaps a second weapon, we'll get into that later. Maybe you want to hold something that you need 2 hands to swing, like a war hammer or a huge axe or a really big sword. Okay, you can do that. Those are strength-based weapons. If you want to be more of a quick and agile type of fighter, maybe you make dexterity your highest score and use something you can wield in one hand, like a long sword or short sword or a rapier. That long pointy sword that you fence with. That way you can keep that second hand free to hold a shield or a second weapon. Whichever you choose, you need to think about that weapon type that you have, that vision in your head of your fighter holding a weapon. Well, what is it? Because that'll help you determine if it's strength or dexterity based. The second highest score you should pick should then be your constitution. And the reason the book recommends this is because constitution is directly tied to your health, your hit points. And because you're a face-to-face combat fighter, you need to be able to take hits just as well as you dish them out. So you want to be able to have more health. Constitution, that's what is tied to your health. And that's why it's recommending it. It is also giving an alternative here as your second highest score to be intelligence. But that's if you're going to take the Eldritch Knight archetype. And the reason that they're saying intelligence is because the Eldritch Knight archetype wields magic. And that magic comes from their intelligence score. So you would want to focus on that to maximize your output as a magic user in combat. That's why it's recommending that. Now, you don't have to do these things. It's just the recommendation based on the information you've just been given, and it makes the most sense, but you could do what you want. This fighter table in your book is going to show you all the levels 1 through 20, when the proficiency bonuses increase. As you can see, they increase at certain increments, and it shows you that you get something at every level. And we're going to dive into this as we begin to move forward. But first, let's talk about your hit points. Fighters utilize the D10. So this is a diamond shape. It's similar to the D8, but obviously it has 10 sides, so it's like a rounder diamond shape. When you're looking at it from top to bottom, it's circular. But when you have it in your hand, it's going to be a circular with like a circumference in the middle, right? So 10-sided, odds on one, evens on the other. This is what you're going to utilize when you level up and you roll for hit points at each level. This is what you're going to utilize during your short rest and you want to recover some health. You'd be rolling one of these per level. It's the D10. Let's talk proficiencies. All fighters can use all armor types and all shield types. Now, if you think back to our druid video, druids can use shields so long as they're made of wood. Whereas your fighter can use any shield. They can use all armor. Some classes are limited in what kind of armor they can use, and some classes can't use armor at all. Wizard! But the fighter class can use all armor and all shields because you've been trained to do so. So consider that when building your backstory. Also, the fighters can use all simple weapons and all martial weapons. So you can use all the armor, all the shields, all the weapons, dealer's choice. But you don't have any tool proficiencies. That's okay. I think the rest of your party can make up for that, considering you're the one that's probably dealing and taking the most damage every time you fight. I think that's a decent trade. Your proficiency in the saving throws, you'll be better at strength and constitution than the others. Your proficiency bonus gets added here, so they'll be slightly higher than the rest of your saving throws. So strength and con. So again, that's why your player's handbook is saying, beef up your strength or dex, and then your con. That's why. Skills, you get to pick 2 skills to be proficient with, and these are the skill checks that you make with your D20. So things like you get to pick 2 from acrobatics, animal handling, athletics, history, insight, intimidation, perception, and survival. If you're a fighter, you might want to consider athletics being one of those choices because you utilize the athletic skill check when you're climbing a tree, treading water, climbing a building, or leaping from one rooftop to another. You might want to consider acrobatics. That's your ability to parkour and dodge, or maybe you leap and you have to stick the landing. Acrobatics would be your balance, right? Fighters tend to be athletic, so acrobatics and athletics are easy choices for those 2 things. But you could factor in other things depending on what you want to do with your character and your backstory. So don't be afraid to go for something unconventional like animal handling or insight, like your ability to tell if somebody's lying. Maybe you want to be a fierce-looking fighter and you want to intimidate others. Go for it. Survival is your ability to track and forage. Maybe you've been in the woods for a long time or certain terrain type for a long time and you've grown adept to surviving. It's your backstory. You build it. As far as equipment, all fighters start with some options. The first one being armor. You get to use chainmail or leather, but you also get a longbow and 20 arrows. Now, leather's not going to give you a very high armor class. I think it starts at like 11, whereas chainmail starts at 16, I believe. Your second option is to choose 1 martial weapon and a shield, or forgo the shield and take 2 weapons. Now, taking 2 weapons doesn't necessarily mean you have to wield them both simultaneously, but maybe you've got options. I don't want to use my sword today. I want to use my Morning Star. Great, you have options. We'll get more into the 2-weapon thing when we talk about our fighting styles. Your third choice is a crossbow with 20 bolts or 2 hand axes. Hand axes can be thrown, so that could be your ranged weapon option. Hand axes are like hatchets, tomahawks, something like that. You can throw them a short distance. And then your choice between a Dungeoner's pack and an Explorer's pack. They're both very similar. They have rations, rope, torches. I think the difference here is like a nice bedroll versus like climbing pythons. So just up to you and the terrain you decide is best suits you for your backstory. Okay, first at level 1, here's some of the features you get. You must first choose a fighting style. You have a couple of options. You can only pick one at level 1. The options are as follows. First, archery. If you want to be the type of fighter that's more of an archer, go for it. You should take this fighting style then, because the archery fighting style is going to allow you to take a +2 bonus to your attack rolls you make with ranged weapons. And your attack roll is the one where you roll your d20 and you're trying to figure out if you hit. Now, usually ranged weapons are going to be dexterity based. So maybe you don't focus on strength. You focus on dexterity being your highest ability and then constitution, right? If that's the case, you want to be good at dexterity and then tack on archer, and it's just going to increase your likelihood of hitting your opponent. It only gives a bonus to the hit roll, not the damage, but it's worth it if you want to be a good archer. You could opt for the defense style. And what this means is when you're wearing armor, add 1 to that armor class. 1's a big deal. So if you took that chainmail and you started with 16, at level 1, choosing defense means your armor class is a 17. That's great for level 1. That means my monsters, my bad guys, have to roll a 17 or higher just to hit you. Armor class is important. Don't fall asleep on armor class. Or maybe you decided, you know what, I'm going to go with the leather armor. Less fancy, not as high as the AC because I want the longbow. Okay, maybe you made that choice when you were picking your equipment. But you might want to consider defense because your AC is pretty low and you're running the risk of getting hit. So defense is good. Should you be wearing the armor, you can really get a high AC early on. Something to consider. There's great weapon fighting. Now, this is for the weapons that you wield with 2 hands. Something like a great club, a great axe, a great sword. You know, a weapon with the word great in it. That means you need to wield it with 2 hands just to swing it. The great weapon fighting style means that you get to reroll 1s and 2s on your first damage roll. For example, the great sword, the standard damage is 2d6 before your modifiers. So let's say I roll 2d6. I rolled a 6 and a 1, no lie. I can take that 1, right, and say, hey DM, I rolled a 1 on one of these. I have great weapon fighting, so I can re-roll this. That next roll, I have to use, even if it's a 1 or a 2. I just get to re-roll 1s and 2s that first time I roll that damage. You got to use the new roll, which lucked out for me because I turned that 1 into a 4. So rather than doing 7 damage, I'm now doing 10 before I add my modifiers. That's what makes that one a good one to take. Okay? Remember, the weapon has to be 2-handed or considered versatile for you to gain this benefit. So it's only useful if you're going to be using one of the big weapons. You could take the protection style. Now, protection doesn't really apply to you. That's defense. Protection means if I've got an ally within 5 feet, I could use my reaction. I must be holding a shield to do this. But I could use my reaction to basically say, I'm going to lean over and try and block that. That's what I would say in roleplay. What I'm really telling my DM is, you get disadvantage because I have the protection fighting style and she's within 5 feet of me. And as your DM, I'm going to be like, darn it. I could turn a crit into a normal hit. that could turn a hit into a miss. There's a lot imposing disadvantage or re-rolling the attack roll could do, and that's a great way to frustrate your DM in the best way possible, but helping your party. And lastly, you have 2-weapon fighting. Now, you would think like anybody could just pick up 2 weapons and swing them both, especially if you have extra attack, which allows you to attack 2 times on your turn. But that's not always the case because you're offhand, you're not proficient with it. So you don't get you don't get to add your modifiers to that offhand attack unless you have 2-weapon fighting. Because 2-weapon fighting says when you engage in 2-weapon fighting, you add your ability modifier to the damage of the second attack. Because I'm proficient, I'm used to it. I'm trained this way. I could do this. Now, there are some feats that can allow you to swing with 2 weapons, but like this fighting style is specifically designed if you want that fighter to have 2 weapons in their hands. Forget the shield, man. I want 2 weapons and I want to hack away. Great. That's what this is for. So you get to choose this fighting style, just one of them, at level 1. Also at level 1, you get a feature called Second Wind. This is a bonus action. What Second Wind does is it allows you to take your hit die, 1d10, and I can roll that. Ooh, I rolled a 10. And add my fighter level to it. So let's say I'm level 1. My 10 plus 1, that's 11. I can heal myself up to 11 hit points. Just can't go above my max. Once per short rest before I can refill this feature again. I can't spam use it. You can only use it 1 time. Now, once you take a short or long rest, you replenish that. And then in later levels, you might get additional uses of this. But here at first level, that's a pretty cool bonus action, especially if you've been fighting because you know you're close combat, to be able to heal yourself a little bit. So you get your fighting style and Second Wind at level 1. At level 2, you get a feature called Action Surge. And Action Surge allows you to take an additional action on your turn. You can only do it once before you need to rest to replenish it. Now, at 17th level, you get a second Action Surge. So you get to use this feature twice, starting at 17th level. But up 1st through 16th level, you only get one of these before you have to rest to replenish it. So use it wisely. But it allows you to take a second action. So if your action was to attack, I'm going to use my bonus action to Action Surge. I'm going to attack again. Go for it. You can do that with your Action Surge. That's a good use of that. Okay? At 3rd level, you get to choose a martial archetype. This is different than your fighting style. This is actually your subclass. You get to choose it at 3rd level. And in the player's handbook, there are 3 options. Champion, which we're going to talk about in this video. Then there's Battle Master and Eldritch Knight. We're going to talk about those 2 in a different video. But you get to choose your subclass at 3rd level. And then at levels 7, 10, 15, and 18, your subclass will drop you additional things that you can do. And that's very cool because it's not just a one-time option here at 3rd level. You choose your subclass, your archetype, and then as you level up, your archetype is going to give you more and more features because you're becoming more skilled. It makes sense, right? Okay. At 4th level, you get ability score improvement. Or, if your DM allows it in your campaign, you can forego the ability score improvement and choose a feat. And feats are like special moves or special things you can do. But for the most part, you might consider the ability score improvement. Now, if you do choose this, you'll be able to increase 1 ability score by 2 points or 2 ability scores by 1 point each. Now, most classes only get this opportunity at 4th, 8th, 12th, 16th, and 19th levels. However, as a fighter, you get way more opportunities. You get it at 4th, 6th, 8th, 12th, 14th, 16th, and 19th. You get 2 additional opportunities more than other classes to improve your abilities and or take a feat. However you want to divvy that up in your build and work with your DM on that. But just remember that you cannot exceed 20 on your ability scores. 20 is the highest you can go, unless you have a magic item that allows you to go beyond 20. And there are some magic items that do that. But something worth considering, because you could really max out your strength or dex, max out your constitution, and just make your fighter just more well-rounded. Take some feats maybe at a couple levels, take some improvements at a couple levels. The world is your oyster at this part. At 5th level, you get extra attack. That means when you use your attack action on your turn, instead of just getting 1 swing, you get 2. So maybe it's 2 with the same weapon. Maybe you took that 2-handed fighting and you go attack, attack. Woohoo! There's a way to do that, right? What's really cool about the fighter is that you get a 3rd extra attack at 11th level and a 4th at 20th level. So I want you to think about this. You're at 5th level, and on your attack action, you get 2 swings. Let's say you use your action surge. Remember your action surge you get at level 2? You get to take an extra action. Well, extra attack means on my turn and I attack, I get 2 swings instead of 1. Action surge, I'm going to attack again. Guess what that means? 2 more swings, because your attack action is 2, not 1. That's what extra attack is. So I want to make sure that you understand that, because it makes action surge that much more important. So imagine at 11th level, when you make the attack, you get 3 swings. You could action surge 3 more swings. Remember, action surge is a bonus action which allows you to take an action, and that action could be extra attack. So instead of swinging 3 times, you could use that action surge and swing 6 times. At 20th level, your attack is 4 swings. So if you action surge there, it's 8, and you're just beating the crap out of stuff. So I want you to think about that, because, again, it makes fighter so much fun when you can just stand there and pummel your enemy. It's great. Know your sheets. Know these rules, because you could be just giving your DM such a hard time by beating up all his or her monsters. Go for it. It's why fighter exists. By the way, as a DM, I love playing against fighters. This makes it so much more fun. Lastly, at level 9, you get something called Indomitable. Now, Indomitable will allow you to reroll a saving throw that you failed. But that new roll, you gotta use it, whether it's a pass or fail. You only get to use this 1 time until you need to rest to replenish it. However, you can use it 2 times starting at 13th level and 3 times starting at 17th level. So it makes it really hard to put down your fighter when you're like, oh, I failed my saving throw. Never mind, I'm going to re-roll that. Oh, I pass. It keeps your DM on their toes. But that's a great feature. You have to rest to replenish it. You can only use it once, starting at 9th level. You get to use it 2 times at 13th level, 3 times at 17th. Okay? That's what all fighters get. Now, let's talk about the martial archetype. Remember, you get to choose your martial archetype at level 3. The first option is Champion. Now, this is going to be something you want to consider if you want your fighter to not only just be a good fighter, but like have a reputation for being a good fighter. If you want to build that character that was a gladiator who fought to their freedom in the fighting pits and now they're an adventurer, Champion might be a way to go, because it could help explain in your backstory why you're so good at what you do. Here's what Champion fighters get. This is your subclass, okay? If you're a Champion fighter, starting at 3rd level, you get improved critical. And what that means is We all love the natural 20, right? In combat, that means automatic success. It means more damage output. When you're a champion fighter, starting at 3rd level, your critical hits are 19s or 20s. That increases your chances of landing a critical hit. Remember, it's a 20-sided die. 19 and 20, that's 2 out of 20. That's 10% chance of you scoring a critical hit there. So just think about that as you are building your character. At 7th level, you get to add half of your proficiency bonus rounded up to any dexterity, strength, dexterity, or constitution check. I'm going to highlight that word check there. Check. I know Microsoft wants me to look up something. Stop it. Check. That does not say saving throw. Okay? That says check. So, for example, a strength check might be like athletics. You want to climb that, scale that building or tree, or you want to jump from this roof to that roof. Your DM is going to ask you to roll an athletics check. At 7th level, as a champion, you get Remarkable Athlete. That allows you to take your proficiency bonus and add it to that roll as a little kicker. So let's say your proficiency bonus is a +3. Half of 3 is 1.5. Round it up to 2. I'll take a +2 bonus to my D20 roll. Give me that all day. That's what that's saying. You know, your dexterity check might be sleight of hand, acrobatics. A remarkable athlete just means you're quick at it. So it explains why you would get that little bonus or be good at it, because you're a remarkable athlete. Now, in addition, it's going to say that when you make a running long jump, the distance you can cover increases by a number of feet equaled to your strength modifier. Jumping in D&D, long jumping specifically, is 3 plus your strength score. So if you have a strength score of 16, 16 plus 3 is 19. You can jump 19 feet so long as you have a 10-foot running start. So 10-foot running start and you jump, you clear 19 feet. You've got 30 feet of movement, 10 and 19 is 29. You should be able to make a running long jump of 19 feet. What this is going to allow you to do is to add a number of feet equal to your strength modifier. So if jumping is your strength 3 plus your strength score, this is going to allow you to add your strength modifier. In my example, I used 16. 16 was my strength score. That means I have a modifier of +3. This would mean 3 plus my strength score, 16, that's where I got the 19 from, plus my strength modifier, which is another 3, that's 21 feet I can clear, so long as I have a running start, which is 10 feet. So I run 10 feet, I can jump 21 feet. I just can't exceed my movement. So maybe this is where you consider taking a feat like mobile, which adds to your speed. Maybe you take the mobile feat at level 4 or 6 or 8, and your speed is now 40. Well, a 10-foot running start plus the 21 feet I can jump is 31 feet. I still got 9 feet of movement I can use, maybe 1 square, of movement I can use after I land to keep moving, because I did that. That's how feats come into play. I don't mean to say that to confuse you or lose you. I'm saying that to be like, that's what you should think about when you take feats. Think about, how am I going to use this? Remarkable Athlete allows you to jump a little bit further than the normal person. At 10th level, you get additional fighting style. This is great, especially when you're like me and you can't choose between one at level 1. This is what we were talking about earlier when you get to level 1 and you get to pick archery, defense, dueling, great weapon fighting, protection, or 2-weapon fighting. You got to pick one at level 1. If you're a champion archetype, at 10th level, you got to pick a second one of those. So if you were debating earlier, go get that second one. At 15th level, you get superior critical. Now, wait, Matt, you said at 3rd level I get improved critical. My crits are 19s and 20s. So what are you saying? I'm saying at 15th level, your critical hits are 18, 19, or 20s. That's a 15% chance of rolling a critical hit. So, fighter, what you need to do with your party is to convince one of them to flank your enemy. If you're in front, get them to stand behind your enemy. If you're on one side, get them to stand on the other, because flanking allows you advantage. Get advantage as much as you possibly can, because when you're critting on 18 through 20, I want to make sure you have every opportunity to kill this thing, whatever we're fighting. That is awesome, and this is one of the reasons why playing fighter is so much fun. Lastly, at 18th level, you get something called Survivor. And what Survivor allows you to do is that when you're at half of your health or lower, at the start of your turn, you can take 5 plus whatever your Constitution modifier is. Maybe it's a +3, maybe it's a +4. You add 5 plus your Constitution modifier, and you just heal. It just happens at the start of your turn. Role play it like a surge of adrenaline. You're relying on your instincts to survive this encounter. You're less than half your health. Your adrenaline is just kicking in to get your will to live, to get you through this. Role play it like that. It allows you to heal. Now, if you go all the way down to 0, you're knocked out. This does not kick in when you drop to 0 hit points. I'm sorry. Okay? You got to have at least 1 hit point, but somewhere between 1 and half your health, you can start healing at the start of your turn at 18th level when you get the Survivor feature, and it's only available for the Champion Archetype. So, this is a great subclass for those who are interested in learning the mechanics of the game. A great subclass for somebody who loves combat and wants to just beat up the monsters. This is the way to go. We're going to talk about the other 2 archetypes because they both have their pros and cons. The Battle Master and the Eldritch Knight. We're going to talk about those in the next video. So until we see you again, keep rolling those dice, and we'll see you at the table.